I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I am a victim. Rejected by the system. Neglected by the system. I'm a victim. Rejected by the system. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. Guys, I'm it's supposed to be a transitional justice, but in this transition, I still can't see no justice. Still feeling hopeless deep down. I'm so disgusted. 2 years gone, nothing has been discovered. I was promised truth, but witnesses are disappearing. Despite
So, yo,
drama, I don't see no sense.
This is your central mic.
Though I smile deep down, it really hurts. To recognize my violations, they tell me it's a process. While I'm dying waiting, I see former perpetrators being reinstated. Truth seeking is hard when the truth is being played with. Justice denied every day is delayed. If you a victim, then you know what I'm saying. Mic test 1 2 0 2. Fact checkers.
Mic test 1 2 0 checkers 1 2. Yeah. Alright, I thought da nga gata mo tay waye still des na. Yo des na.
All right, so welcome back from the press break, and we're gonna start the program now. We're gonna start the program proper, and for those coming now, welcome to the April 10/11 commemoration, and to the victims, once again, you're welcome. And you know, we stand by you for call for justice and accountability. What happened April 10/11 is not an isolated event. It was a deliberate brutality and injustice against young people, most especially students, whose only crime was to call for accountability for their colleagues that have been brutalized, sexually harassed, and eventually killed. And to set the pace, and I would like to call on Ms. Awada Costa, program coordinator for Fantanka, to give us the opening statement.
All right, thank you, Omar. Okay, no problem. Thank you. Distinguished guests, victims that are here present, our valuable partners, fellow young people, and members of the public, I share you all my heartfelt greetings. Good evening. On behalf of Fantanka, it is my honor to welcome you all to this year's commemoration of the April 10/11 students' demonstrations. For us at Fantanka, this is not just another event. It is a responsibility we have carried over the years. Each year, we come together to remember, to reflect, and to ensure that the voices and the sacrifices of those young students are never forgotten. We do so in partnership with like-minded organizations who share a common commitment to justice, accountability, and human rights. April 10th and 11 remains a painful chapter in our national history. On these days, young Gambian students filled with courage and conviction took to the streets to demand justice. Instead of being heard, they were met with violence. Lives were lost and many were injured. And families were left with grief that they endure up to this day. Today, as we gather once again, We honor those lives. We stand in solidarity with their families, and we recognize that remembrance alone is not enough. This commemoration is also a call to action. As a country that has committed itself to justice and democratic governance, we must continue to ask, where do we stand today? Have we done enough to ensure there is accountability? Have we taken the necessary steps to guarantee that such tragedy would never happen again in the Gambia? At Fantanka, together with other partners, we believe that remembering April 10th and 11th must go hand in hand with advocating for truth, justice, and institutional reforms. It must inspire us to build where dissent is not criminalized and where justice is not delayed. To our partners, we thank you for standing with us in this important work. Your collaboration reflects the power of collective action in advocating for human rights and accountability in our country. To the young people here today, this history belongs to you. Let it inspire you to remain engaged, to speak out, and to contribute to building the Gambia we all deserve. As we all know, the April 10-11 student demonstration, brutal killing of a student, a 15-year-old student named Ibrahim Bari, and second was the rape of Binta Mane, a student from Brikamaba who came to the Bakau Stadium to represent her school in an inter-house sports competition. So as we do this activity today, we are expected to not just remember, but to dialogue, but also to call on authorities for justice and accountability, as well as reflect on the recent happenings, especially issues surrounding state-youth relationship and issue of youth activism in the Gambia, linking it to the events of April 10 and 11. Also, we would want to make actionable plans regarding the issue of sexual and gender-based violence, as this is one aspect of the incident that remains to have limited focus. So to our partners, Activista de Gambia, Gambians Against Looted Assets, Team Gomsa Bopa, the Women's Association for Women and Victims Empowerment, and Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. We thank you all for coming forth to partner with us to hold this important activity. Once again, thank you all, and I hope we have a very productive evening. Thank you.
Never again. Thank you, Dige, and thank you, Ms. Da Costa, for the welcoming remark. And next, we will have the joint statement to be read by Mr. Madi Jobate, the Executive Director of Edward Francis Small Center for Right and Justice, but also a senior comrade in the civil society space. So, Uncle Madi, you're welcome.
ñaata jigéen si office ñu leen di sexually harass lu tax suñ place néew that's the question you gotta ask waxal ñaata jigéen la fi seen doom yi disappear nangu seen alal te rey leen ñu ñaan ñu reappear bu ñu nax kon bu ragal la wax
This is not going to be this is not going to be easy Okay. Okay. Good. Okay, it's okay.
That's okay, I got you. For you. Yes, sir. There you go. You good?
I'm good?
Yeah, do you want me to hold it for you? I can hold it for you.
It's alright.
Sure.
Yeah, it's alright.
Give me the light so I can hold it for you.
Okay. The text is a bit small. Alright, good evening. On this solemn day, I read a joint statement on the commemoration of the April 10 and 11, 2000 student massacre. So this statement is from Fantanka, Gambians Against Looted Assets, the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, WAVE, Activista, and Team Gumsabopa. Today, we join the nation in solemn remembrance of the tragic events of April 10 and 11, 2000, days that remain a painful reminder of the consequences of unchecked power and the cost of demanding justice. 26 years on, we honor the memory of the students who lost their lives and those who were injured while peacefully protesting for accountability, dignity, and the rule of law. Their courage keeps motivating a generation committed to building a more just, accountable, and democratic Gambia. We also recall that these protests were precipitated by grave abuse of power against the rights of young people, including the rape of a student girl with great potential, an act of sexual and gender-based violence that killed her potential. This dimension must not be erased from our collective memory as SGBV and gender injustice continue to undermine future potentials, particularly of women and girls. These events were not isolated. They were emblematic of a broader system of repression that characterized the era of Yahya Jammeh, a system that silenced dissent and undermined fundamental rights. Remembering April 10 and 11 is therefore not only about honoring the victims, but also about confronting our past with honesty and resolve. As organizations committed to justice and citizen empowerment, we emphasize that remembrance must go hand in hand with action. The recommendations of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission provide a critical pathway toward justice. However, many victims and their families continue to wait for full accountability and meaningful reparations. Remind the government that since it accepted some 20 TRRC recommendations relating to the student demonstration and freedom of assembly back in May 2022, only one has been implemented. A thorough look at the recommendations shows that only the procurement of police equipment, can you imagine, for handling demonstrations has been implemented by the government. On the other hand, one recommendation calling for the establishment of a rehabilitation center or a fund to support victims has not been fully implemented. Although the Reparations Commission has been established, it has not been fully supported by the government. With approximately 20 million invested in reparations in late 2025. Meanwhile, the Janneh Commission investigation recovered over $1 billion of former President Jammeh's assets, which the government spent without supporting the victims. The process, or the TRRC, places some responsibility on the lower and tertiary education ministries to implement recommendations that will guarantee the non-reoccurrence of the student massacre, such as the urgent need to memorialize the student massacre. In addition, the two education ministries are tasked with establishing a complaint mechanism for student bodies and an annual meeting with student bodies. We recall that memorialization is not symbolic alone, but a core component of reparative justice. Victims and their families have consistently expressed the desire for meaningful forms of remembrance, including the renaming of Westfield Monument to reflect the legacy of April 10 and 11. This demand should be given due consideration as part of a victim-centered reparations and memory process. We therefore call on the government of the Gambia, particularly the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education and the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, to support and progress memorialization plans with the victims of April 10 and 11, April 2027, and to establish a complaints mechanism to avert a similar incident. One of the most urgent recommendations involve the medical condition of some of the victims, which has been so urgent that some were flown abroad for medical treatment during the TRRC process. However, a thorough assessment is needed for all victims with health complications, with some desperately needing urgent medical attention. In this same vein, we call on the government to ensure that all victims are paid their reparations in full before April 2027 commemoration. We therefore call on the government of the Gambia to, 1, expedite the full and transparent implementation of TRRC recommendations. 2, ensure accountability for perpetrators through credible and victim-centered justice processes. 3, provide timely and adequate reparations to victims and their families. 4, strengthen institutional safeguards to prevent recurrence. And finally, promote civic education and youth engagement in democratic governance. We further call on all citizens, particularly young people, to remain engaged, informed, and committed to peaceful advocacy in defense of democratic values and human rights. To the families of the victims, we stand in unwavering solidarity with you. Your pain is national, and your demand for justice is a collective responsibility. As we commemorate these days, we reaffirm our shared commitment to ensure young people's voices are always heard and justice is never delayed or denied. Never again, never forgotten. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Uncle Madi. Never again and never forgotten. And I keep saying this, that the never again is not just slogan. It should be a mantra. And this mantra must be carried, sustained, and achieved by the young people of this country. And next on the agenda, I will call on Mr. Yusuf Taylor to take us through the TRRC recommendations on the April 10-11 and the progress made so far. Yusuf Taylor, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Saibo, Mr. Moderator, and all the speakers who have spoken. My name is Yusuf Taylor. Some of you know me as Flex. It's okay. Some of you know me as Flex Dan. I just want to, first of all, thank everybody who have come and sympathize with the victims, those who lost their loved ones over 26 years now. It's such a long time, no justice. And our mantra was what? Never again. So how far are we? So I'm just going to chat with you guys. I wanted to be, people to know what's going on. So I just want you guys to have an idea. So what we did, we said before we come for today, let's get in touch with the NHRC. So I was tasked, journalists asking for information. Anyways, I tasked myself because every year, April, around this time of the year, honestly, I'm restless. So it's something that disturbs, I'm sure, all of us in the coalition. So I was tasked to engage with the NHRC, and we all know NHRC is mandated to assess the recommendations. How far are we going with regards to the recommendations? So we engaged them to give us the information. And they sent us a document, and we had to go through it myself. When we went through it, if it's possible, can I get somebody to help me hold this so that I can deal with the paper? Sorry, somebody can, please. Okay, so we went and we got in touch with the NHRC, and they gave us a document outlining just how far we are in the, the recommendations that relate to the April 2000. It's theme 5 inside the TRRC recommendations for those of you who are familiar with the TRRC. Theme 5 is student demonstration. And there are also some additional recommendations which we saw that relate to right to protest. And we've also looked at that. So in total, there are about 20 recommendations that we've identified. And as Madi Jobate has told you, when I say we, it's we because of the government and us are what make the state. Of course, the state has the responsibility. So there's only been one recommendation which has been implemented, all right? And this recommendation is about, it relates to the procurement of police equipment for managing demonstrations, right? So the only thing that has been done so far is that they have procured some equipment from all the 20 recommendations. But the problem which we have here is how such equipment, including tear gas, have been used. Of late, we are seeing reports of inappropriate use of, this crowd control equipment, right? Videos of police assaulting people. I'm sure many of you remember that video. Somebody being stamped by police right in the midriff, in the abdomen. These are serious things, right? The killing of Usman Baji. And more recently, during the last protest, we saw an elderly man was seriously injured by what? Tear gas, right? And a mother and her baby were also seriously affected. So the equipment are there. How are they using them? Now we move on to the other recommendations which have not been implemented. So stick with me, the numbers. You'll all check me with the numbers. I said 1 has been completed, there are 20. 8 of them have not been implemented, right? Outright, according to the NHRC report. 6 of them are under this theme 5, which is the student demonstration, and 1 is under theme 6, attack on political opponents, and another one under amnesty. Okay, 2 of them relate to the prosecution and banning of Gorgin Boop, right? He passed away, unfortunately, in 2024, while serving as commissioner of the anti-crime unit. So that means that recommendation will never, ever be achieved, right? So another key recommendation calls for the memorialization of the student massacre, right? In addition, a recommendation places these responsibilities, as Madi has said. So one thing which we are doing, by Monday you will see, we are progressing, we are aiming to have engagements with the education ministries. On Monday we plan to see the Ministry of Higher Education, and we hope to engage with the Ministry of Basic Education, because next year it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be just us, the victims, and civil society concerned. The state, the authorities have to be involved. So we really going to really push on with that from the soon. Around the next year, we'll wait until April. So we're not going to do that this time. We're going to start from now. Okay? So this is very important because of this is about non-reoccurrence. We don't want these things to happen. The ministry has a very important role. The education ministry, what the government has accepted is that they would establish complaints mechanisms in the education sector. We've seen protests at the UTG. We've seen students involved in protest. It's because these complaints mechanisms are not in place, which will ensure the non-reoccurrence of something like this happening again. So we're going to hopefully have the conversation with the ministries, starting with on Monday. We're going to meet the higher education minister, and we are going to put this to him, and hopefully they will take this up, and hopefully by 2027 these things happen, and issues are addressed before they spill over. Okay, so another critical recommendation which has not been implemented calls for the review of the Public Order Act, right? Specifically Section 5. This is inside the TRRC, and the government has accepted it, right? Efforts by your colleague, Honorable Suleiman Saho, of course, of Central Baribu, he attempted to put through a bill, but of course, we all saw what happened. The majority, they blocked it, which is showing you that the authorities, in one hand, they've accepted the recommendation, but when it comes to the crunch time to do the work, time to remove these bad laws, they chicken out. They don't chicken out, I say they prefer to keep it in place so that it serves their purpose. But we're going to have to remind them that that cannot continue. And one of the last ones out of the 8 is calling for amnesty to former Vice President This, I actually, in the initial, I thought that this was done, but then when I've done our document and we had a first draft and we shared it with the NHRC, and an NHRC official has reliably informed me that you're giving the government the credit. You see, we try to give them credit, but unfortunately this time they said, no, this has not been completed. It has not been implemented. So NHRC will certainly, in their next report, I'm sure we will see some of these new things coming. And then, ongoing, so that was the 8 recommendations that have not been implemented, right? And we have an appendix here listing them all out one by one. So anybody who wants them, we will make them available. So we're going to go on to the last criteria, which is 11 ongoing recommendations. Ongoing. So these recommendations, they say that they are started, some of them, and they are moving towards them being implemented. 11. Okay. 10 of them are under theme 5, which we said is the student demonstration, the massacre. And 6 of them are under attack on political, and 1, is under theme 6, attack on political opponents. Okay, so 4 of the recommendations relate to the prosecution of key perpetrators, including, of course, former President Yahya Jammeh and former President. Now, these remain pending because the establishment of the Special Prosecutor's Office and the Special Tribunal for the Gambia is what is pending. I'm sure just this week you would have seen that the Special Prosecutor has been appointed, right? Everybody has seen that. But what is remaining, there is no Special Tribunal, okay? And of course we have the Special Division, Criminal Division, which has been established to hear local crimes that they could be tried on local laws. But until that Special Tribunal, most likely the big fish, we will not be able to get them. All right, so another 5 recommendations is calling for the banning of various individuals, including the former president, vice president, and others, for specific periods. Now, the National Assembly, and thank you again, sorry, you are the only parliamentarian here, so you get my attention. National Assembly has actually passed a ban from Public Office TRRC Act, which is very welcome, since 2024, by the way, but there is still something missing. The Act does not have a list of all those who should be banned, gazetted, right? And I feel Parliament made a mistake by leaving that to the Minister of Justice to decide. That is the core, essential part of the bill. And until this list is gazetted, nobody will be banned. The Act is passed. It's sitting there. It's a red herring. It serves no purpose at this point in time. So we as civil society, Gala, Gomsa Bopa, the CSOs, Edward Francis Small, and the rest, everybody, Fantanka, everybody, we probably need to take this up. Now, okay, so until that is done, we will not have these people being banned. And one recommendation calls for the establishment of a victims support fund, right? And as Mahdi has said, the Reparations Commission has been established and they remain underfunded. Yeah, I'm at the end. They remain underfunded. So the issue for that is that, yes, last year they were given 20 million. I can tell you that this year they've also been allocated 20 million. But we all know that over 1 billion of Jammeh's assets has been recovered, and still now the victims are still waiting. Meanwhile, you have those like Yusufa. You have some who couldn't come today, Umi Jain, and many others who are seriously sick. They couldn't make it to here. Some of them, I don't know whether 2027 they might still be alive. This is a very serious matter. We need to take out to the streets if we have to. But these victims have to be given the money. Everything connects. If you talk about the assets that have been stolen. So finally, some of these recommendations, they overlap. Notably, 2 of them are calling for improved police training in crowd control and protest management. One of the recommendations specifically emphasizes the development of an effective training manual for security forces. So police have not done that, but the NHRC has conducted training as sessions for the police until that is fully implemented. So that's all what we have. 20 recommendations, 1 fully implemented, 8 not implemented, and 11 ongoing to be implemented. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right. All right, thank you very much, Yusuf Taylor, and thank you for reminding me. How do we say it in Gala? Higher morals, higher discipline. I couldn't acknowledge the presence of the only public official here. Honorable, thank you for being here. That was an oversight. Please excuse my manners. But your presence here means a lot for us, and we believe that part of your advocacy in the parliament is to ensure full recommendation of the TRRC recommendations in general, but particularly for the April 10, 11 that reflect the young people. And then, like Flex said, every day we go out to protest. Every day we speak up to power. We are reminded that the April 10, 11 could recur and can repeat itself again. And the never again, once again, should not just be a slogan, but a living legacy that everybody should carry together. And moving forward, next, we will have the technical team play the documentary of the April 10, 11 done by Fantanka for 30 minutes. And then we'll get into the Citizens Assembly Bantaba, where we're going to discuss randomly. There is no panel. We're going to discuss randomly and, have recommendations, but also listen to victims and everyone here on their take on the April 10, 11, the current realities on the ground, and the moving forward, what needs to be done to ensure that the never again means never again. Technical team?
But, Emran, so before you hit a community, sorry, but I'm gonna so I can't lift up. Sorry.